Thanks for watching The Thought Criminals, named after the Orwellian criminalization of independent thought and free speech. I'm your host, Rachel Alexander. I'm a weekly contributor to Townhall and other sites, and the editor of Intellectual Conservative. And this is my mole, Ralph Benko, who worked in and with the Reagan, W. Bush, and Trump White Houses. He's a weekly columnist for Newsmax. He's co-author of the Capitalist Manifesto and co-founder and executive chairman of the 184,000 member Capitalist League Facebook group. And today we're going to discuss two items. First of all, I had an article discussing domestic violence, how it's basically committed more by women than men these days. And I want people to just stop perpetuating this myth that it's a problem of male violence on women. And then we'll pivot to Ralph's genius column that I wish I had written on how we need to be more civil and quit using phrases like own the libs. So to begin with my article, basically the UN came out with this big campaign over the winter, orange the world, end violence against women now, creating and perpetuating this perception that it's men who are committing violence on women. But if you look at all the recent studies, for example, one that showed that victims of domestic violence within the last year, 19.8% of men report being a victim, whereas only 18.8% of women report being a victim. And let me just throw some other facts at you. Joe Biden was the one who drafted the Violence Against Women Act in the 1990s. And despite all the taxpayer-funded money that we threw at that program, there's little to no evidence that it actually stopped domestic violence. There's another stereotype that persisted in the 1990s, which was that more women are victims of domestic violence on Super Bowl Sunday than on any other day of the year. Well, the left-wing fact-checking site Snopes even completely debunked that, showed that was false. There's a longtime feminist, Gloria Steinem, who said, the most dangerous situation for a woman is a husband or lover in the isolation of their home. Totally false. According to the Centers for Disease Control, no conservative government agency, they said the leading causes of injury deaths for women are falls, followed by poisonings, and then traffic accidents. And then my article goes into all of the left-wing dominated legal organizations that promote these types of statistics. We've got like the International Association of Chiefs of Police, the American Bar Association, Department of Justice. Occasionally they take down their misinformation, but a lot of times it's passed all over the internet. And it's a very bad stereotype because it stops things like men from asking for help. As much as 99-1 when it comes to women versus men ask for help in areas like legal assistance, sexual assault services, and transitional living services, which then perpetuates this vicious cycle, looking like men aren't actually victims too. It definitely hurts Black men. They're more likely to be the victims of domestic violence than Black women, and so they're going to be more likely to get locked up. And finally, I want to point out that women are also more likely than men to be involved in the abuse of their own children. They commit 53% of child abuse incidences and are responsible for 71% of child homicides. And I also want to throw in one more final thing. During the COVID-19 epidemic, there were wild claims that being stuck at home has increased domestic violence, and 4 different studies found that wasn't true.
Okay, well, you've certainly blown up yet another myth. And Rachel, I just want to let you know thanks in large part to you, we're running critically low on myths because you keep blowing up all these myths. Where are we going to be without the myths? You just
have to go to the left. They keep churning out more and more and making them up and finding them.
Okay, but let me just say this about that. I think that we should be learning from the left because they are very proficient they are far more proficient in their propaganda than we are. because our propaganda is all boring fact-based stuff like you just gave us. Don't confuse me with facts. Okay, the left's propaganda is properly grounded in drama, narrative, plot,
tragic anecdotes.
Tragic anecdotes, right? And anybody like me who's spent any time on Capitol Hill, and I've spent hundreds of hours up there, will understand that America is governed not by logic, but by anecdotes. And in fact, Oliver Wendell Holmes Jr., who went on to become a very notorious progressive justice of the US Supreme Court, known as the Great Dissenter, he wrote a very famous book in legal circles called On the Common Law, which opens up with the phrase, "The life of the law has been experience, not logic." So the left is shrewd by telling these moving anecdotes, these sentimental stories, these little soap operas, which they fashion, and then Congress appropriates billions of dollars to their nonprofit organizations, which are nonprofit in the sense that they don't pay dividends. All that money goes into the pockets of the executives of the nonprofit organizations, who are living fancy, many of whom are living extremely lavish lifestyles with unlimited expense accounts.
And they sound like they're heroes. They sound like they're so wonderful because they're combating violence against women, the Violence Against Women Act.
Right, because they have noble intentions, okay? And so there was a wonderful book written, 20 or 30 years ago, back when you were still in pigtails and pinafores, called The Media Elite by Lichter, Rothstein, and Lichter. And you can buy it on Amazon used for about $2, hardcover. Okay, and it is fabulous. It's not just about the media, it's about the media, it's about the government, and it's about nonprofits on the one side. And on the other side, it's about businessmen. And people, journalists, except for you and me, government officials, elected officials, and nonprofit executives and leaders believe they should be judged morally by society by the nobility of their intentions, not by their outcomes. So for instance, you just said that some obscure former senator named Biden, right? Or is it Brandon? I always get those two confused. named Joe Biden,
led us banned again.
Led the passage of the Violence Against Women Act, which has had zero impact on reducing violence against women. Okay, that's sad. Okay, but it's classical NP need the government officials and nonprofits want to be judged by the nobility of their motivation, not their outcomes. So if they're nobly motivated, like passing legislation against violence against women, who's for violence against women? Of course, that's noble.
If you are, then you're anti-women's rights.
Then you just have, that's what they want to be judged by, okay? Not by the results. Whereas a businessman or businesswoman says, look, my motivation is no business of yours. I want to be judged by how many people I serve by providing good quality products or services at a good price that people are happy to pay in order to get those goods and services. So, Steve Jobs' dream was to put a computer into the lap or onto the desktop or into the hand of everybody in the world. And he created a multi-trillion-dollar company because iPhones, MacBooks, and so forth are so valuable. So, people like them, they're useful, they're elegant, they improve the quality of our lives, and they're better, frankly, than PCs or Androids. But
that's a whole other argument, and I'm not going to let you get away with that because I actually disagree. I'm more of a PC person, but anyways, we can go on.
I never thought of you as politically correct before, but I'll have to look at you in a new
Apple is politically correct. All the libs use Apple, so nice try on that one.
I know, and I've infiltrated their networks, and they'll never know what hit them. The point here being is Steve Jobs was a businessman. He wanted to make a dent in the universe by providing this great product. He invented smartphones. Androids came later, and yes, they're giving them a good competitive run for their money. No question about it. Samsung's and
I thought BlackBerry was the first smartphone. Are you?
No, BlackBerry was not a smartphone. It was a keyboarded. It was a keyboarded way that you could send messages. And I'm post BlackBerry, so if I'm wrong about the fact that you couldn't really surf the internet on your BlackBerry. You could make phone calls and you could send text messages, but I don't think that BlackBerry, which by the way just finally pulled the plug, was really the inventor of the smartphone. That goes to Steve Jobs, and that goes to the iPhone.
I don't know, and we don't have to settle this right now, but I do know that you were just about the first person on the planet to predict that everybody really would end up with a smartphone as like everything. Way back in your prescient book, what was that, 2008 you came out with that?
The Webster's Dictionary, How to Use the Web to Transform the World. And I was I early recognized the power of handheld computing, or smartphones, which are really more handheld computers. Did you know, here's my new brand spanking new iPhone 13, which by the way, I traded in my old beat up iPhone 6 SE to Verizon. They traded it in. They said, we will give you a new iPhone 13 for approximately no extra charge. Just send us back your old iPhone. And I did, and I'm very, very happy with it.
I can't even believe that, because usually they're charging $1,000 now for.
I know, but Verizon had a great had a great promotional deal, which I took, and I'm very, very happy with it.
Because they're just so glad to be able to like track you even more now. That's probably what's going on.
No, I've been a loyal customer of theirs for 22 years, and they want to keep me a loyal customer because I pay my bill every month right on time, and it's not cheap. But in 1985, the computing power in this iPhone would have cost $32 million. And now I got it for next to nothing by my trade-in, but if you buy it on the open market, if you buy it from Apple, it's about $1,000 to $1,200 for $32 million worth of computing power. My iPhone has more computing power than the computers that landed men on the moon and brought them back safely. That's capitalism at its best. That's really extraordinary. But the point I'm trying to get here is Steve Jobs wanted to produce a fantastic product that would improve the lives of hundreds of millions of people and do so affordably, and he did it. And that he became a billionaire in the process. But beyond all of that, he got satisfaction from making a dent in the universe by providing a product or a service, or in his case both, with iTunes and so forth, that people really wanted, made up their own mind that they wanted, that they would spend their money for. Okay, that is need for achievement rather than need for perception. And so what you're talking about is a beautiful example of how the left is all about posturing and being perceived as having noble motivations, even though they're making the world worse in reality.
Whereas black men are getting incarcerated. The police come and they just assume, oh my gosh, it's a black man, he must be violent. And we have these, forced arrest policies when people call the police about a domestic violence incident. Some of these areas you must bring somebody in. And I mean, the ramifications of it are horrendous.
And I'm glad to know that we are in accord with the systemic racism in our society, which you just very beautifully pointed out.
Well, that's a whole other issue, and that's very convoluted, and that's very complex, and that would take a whole other show.
No, it's very simple. It's not convoluted at all, but it will take a whole other show, not just to come to terms with the fact that this is a real thing, but to praise America for the great strides we've been making to reduce, and eventually eradicate systemic racism. So the left wants to pick a bone with this. I pick a bone with it, but I do it in a positive context, saying America has worked its way out of slavery, worked itself out of apartheid, worked itself out of Jim Crow laws, worked itself out of discrimination, and we've got more work to do. And by heaven, we're doing it, and we should be proud of that. And we should be.
Well, they're being total hypocrites. You know, if they think there's this massive systemic racism, then why are they perpetuating it against Black men? Why do we have these laws that say you have to arrest somebody and it's going to be the Black guy if somebody calls the police?
Yeah. So look, this is, once again, you're proving yourself to be a good conservative, Rachel, because you care about real world outcomes and the humanitarian quality of people's lives, not moral posturing that ends up hurting the people that you claim to be trying to protect. So bravo to you. I'm just feeling very blue that we're just, thanks to you, rapidly running out of myths. And what life is so much more interesting when it's suffused with interesting myths, whether it's Jove and Minerva, or whether it's all of the prevailing myths of the left, like passing laws against violence against women is somehow a way of ameliorating violence against women. I'm totally against violence against women. I just want us to be effective about it rather than to be virtue signaling about it.
Right. It's like starting an organization. Stop killing kittens. Like, nobody wants to kill kittens.
Genius. Go to GoDaddy right now and get stopthekittenkilling.org. Okay, we'll clean up on this. We'll be millionaires before you know it.
Well, a high school professor who got fired by Black Lives Matter, he's the one who actually brought up that analogy, because he said that you could start a terrorist organization called Stop Killing Kittens. And nobody would ever want to say anything negative about it because nobody wants to be on the other side of that. So.
Okay, well, good job on your column, Rachel. And I hope everybody will go to Townhall, read it for themselves, and then contact their congressperson. I don't care about senators so much. Senators are a bunch of windbags. Go to their member of Congress, email them, phone them, go to their website, send them a message to their own personal congressperson, not some random congressperson who, like AOC or MTG. The way we get beneficial transformation in this country is when our thousands and millions of listeners actually, instead of complaining, do something constructive, which means call their representative, email their representative, write their representative, and let them know what the folks back home want them to be doing. That is an enormously powerful thing. And by reading columns like yours, it'll give them ammo to direct their voices to our elected representatives, both in the state and in Washington. You'd be shocked at how powerful it is, a constituent call.
And the reason we bring this up is because the Coalition to End Domestic Violence, which is the one that just came out with this report, they're going to be in Congress this week lobbying members of Congress about this issue.
Okay, well, unless we do the same thing, unless we bring the facts, bring the facts to the fore, do the work of calling, writing, emailing, going to the website, sending them a message on the website, or even better, making an appointment and going to see them, either in the district or in Washington, D.C. If we don't mobilize and make our perspective well known, clearly, civilly, but forcefully and consistently, not just blowing off steam and then disappearing. Congressmen are not moved by that. If there are easily twice as many self-described conservatives in this country as there are self-described progressives. Okay, but unfortunately, the progressives are motivated to go out there and make their voices heard, making them.
Well, we're all working and earning money.
Well, I wish I were earning money, but I definitely working. Look, they're working too. There's no excuse for us. We're busy. We're raising family. We've got boyfriends. We got girlfriends. We got boyfriends and girlfriends. We're working. We're bowling. No excuses. Okay. It only takes 15 minutes to contact your elected representative. Okay, and if you don't do that, then don't give me any, I don't want to hear your whining about the stupid things that they're doing, because it's our job to guide their footsteps into the paths of righteousness rather than honing the libs.
I like you quoting the Bible. So on that, let's segue into your awesome column. And I want to say for the record, I have never used the phrase owning the libs. I just own the libs, because I think we should be a lot more civil than that. Now, I will say, I do think that sometimes you can look at the founding fathers, sometimes they said something rather dramatic, against the opposite side. And there is a time and a place for that. But this attitude that we have to constantly just be insulting the other side, and that's all that ever comes out of our mouth. Anyway, I'll digress. I'll defer to you, Ralph.
Well, the thing is, there was a guy you might actually have heard of because you were raised back when they were still educating kids, and his name was George Washington. He was a general.
I'm not that old, but okay.
Well, you were old enough that they were teaching about George Washington. I'm the only one around here who actually had a chance to shake his hand. Okay, so he was a general in the Revolutionary War, and a heroic one, epic. And then he became the first president of the United States by acclamation. Everybody wanted him to be president. Some people, like Alexander Hamilton, wanted him to be king, but he was too humble for that. And he was the chairman of the Constitutional Convention. He became the first president of the United States, served only 2 terms to set a good example that it would not be a presidency for life kind of thing. And in his farewell address, which he didn't give as a speech, he published in the newspapers, he warned us, the American people, against what he called factionalism. And factionalism means when you are, factionalism was his term for owning the liberals and owning the libs. So if all you want to do is to put down and dominate the other team, as opposed to have a healthy competition with the other team, then that is the factionalism that George Washington warned us against. And it leads, he said, to the loss of our liberty and to the rise of despotism. And it's not just the Republicans, it's not just the conservatives. The Democrats and the progressives are equally aggressive about putting us down and trying to dominate us.
They're actually worse. I mean, it's just nonstop dribble from them, but okay.
Well, let me just put it this way. I believe we should clean up our house first. Those who live in glass houses shouldn't throw stones. I'm no apologist for progressives, although I do think that AOC is awfully cute, but that doesn't make me an apologist. That makes me an admirer. I also think she's awfully smart, and I also think she's a wonderful congresswoman who's doing a great job representing her district, even though I disagree with everything.
They're going to take her out eventually. You know that. She's not doing a great job. She's getting nothing passed. She's hurting Biden. She's actually hurting Biden. I think she's a complete failure.
I think she's wonderful.
Because she's good looking. That's the only reason. You think she's
charismatic. She also dresses very stylishly.
Yeah, you just proved my point. Yeah.
And she is super smart. She won science awards.
She's not super smart. She was a mediocre student. She doesn't even understand economics. She went to an okay, university. I mean,
and she won the Intel Prize.
She doesn't even know the 3 branches of government. When she was asked what are the 3 branches of government, she could not explain them.
Well, shame on her social studies teachers for not having taught her that. Let's see, the 3 branches of government.
You and I knew in kindergarten, okay?
Let me guess. The mass media, the president, and the Defense Department. Did I get it right?
I knew your eyes even.
And the military-industrial complex. Yeah. Did I get it right? Okay, so
that has to be the most epic, funniest thing I have ever seen you do.
Okay, look, my point here is that instead of attempting to dominate the other guys, instead of essentially being against I I have to laugh sometimes because sometimes the Democrats will come up with an idea that the Republicans were pushing hard 10 years ago, right? And then all of a sudden the Democrats latch onto it and they start pushing it. And all of a sudden the Republicans are deadly against it. This was our idea, okay?
Foreign policy is all about that.
I'm sorry, say again.
Foreign policy is all about that.
Oh, yeah. So to me, it's just ridiculous that instead of simply everything being like a weaponized a weaponized opportunity to destroy the other team, okay, this is what George Washington warned us against. And therefore, the point I made in my column was it's un-American to be pwning the libs, or in the progressives' case, to be trashing the right. Reflexively is what George Washington warned us was called factionalism. And he said right there in his farewell address, I recommend people go to my column at Newsmax, find my column from last Monday, talking about how January 6th, the insurrection was exactly what George Washington warned us would happen when we devolved into pwning the libs, in our case, or in the progressive point of view, attempting to demonize the right. And I am a paleoconservative, and I've got feelings too. And I want them to be saying nice things about me and how wonderful I am and how big-hearted I am. I don't want them saying mean things.
That's asking just a little bit too much. Nice try, though.
Yes, I know I'm asking for too much, but it's sad. I have friends who are progressives. There are two versions of progressives. There's the good progressives and the evil progressives. And the evil progressives are in control over there. But there are some good progressives, but they dare not speak up and say nice things about us because the evil progressives will then cancel them. And
I
so
think the most we can ask for is just that they don't call us racists and white supremacists. That's about as far as we're going to get.
Well, and it's really, you're absolutely right, Rachel, particularly because the way they play their game is, if you deny being a racist, that proves you're a racist. So it's kind of like, have you stopped beating your wife? Taking this back to violence.
I just tweeted that today to a leftist attacking me. I literally just tweeted that today. Yeah.
I tried to take him with a grain of salt. And back when I was writing for Forbes, before I was writing for Newsmax, before I upped my game, we used to have commenters who I would get trolls all the time. And I used to have the greatest time with the trolls. I would, oh, so-and-so, you're my favorite troll. What good is a bridge if it doesn't have a troll living under it? Thank you for coming here and being my troll. It used to drive them nuts, but instead of getting triggered, I would tease the heck out of them for being the trolls that they are.
And I blame Andrew Breitbart for us doing that, because you were probably sitting in there on a lecture by him at, one of the Americans for Prosperity conferences when he told us, I don't care if it's Chardonnay 363 with 4 followers on Twitter. If they start debating with you, just debate right back. And so that's always stuck in my head, and I can't help myself.
Yeah, and I never met Andrew, but I heard he was a wonderful, fun guy, and he was a provocateur, like your friend Saul Alinsky, or like your other friend.
Don't even put that out there. I'm not letting that stand. I am not even going to be associated in the same sentence with Saul Alinsky, which is another show we still need to have.
This coming Sunday is Saul Alinsky's birthday. I think he would have turned 110 years old had he lived. And he, hated big government, hated social workers, carried concealed, and was very much into. He was the Tea Party before there was a Tea Party.
So there's 3 things that you can say he was on the right versus 97 things on the left. And how could anyone ever want to be like the center of the Saul Alinsky, center?
The president of the Saul Alinsky Center, which I was until David Alinsky, Saul's son, fired me, and I was like, okay, dude, I'm out of here, because David, God bless him, is a real honest to God cookie cutter progressive. And whereas Saul, he was a small government, anti-big government, pro power to the people kind of guy, just like Tea Party. He was the Tea Party before us, and before the Tea Party got overthrown by.
He was like the left-wing version of the Tea Party.
He was not a left-wing guy. You're just calling him left-wing because he was about justice. And frankly, I'm embarrassed because conservatives should be more about justice in thought, word, and deed than the progressives, who have taken the claim of justice. They've taken the meme of justice. They talk big, but they do not promote justice. We should be the justice promoters. In fact, let's be the justice promoters, Rachel. You and I. Let it start here among us thought criminals. And by the way, I'm not your mole. I'm your Moll. Moll is a gangster's girlfriend. And when I wrote that down, I wrote down Moll, not Mole. Mole would be
you called me out. You called me out.
I called you out.
But I just have to point out, Clint Bullock, remember, wisely, way back in the 1990s, started the Institute for Justice on the right.
Yeah.
He got a lot of heat from the left because he's like, we're not going to let you, claim this word. We're reclaiming it back. So it's been done, and but you're right. We need to continue the torch.
We need to, and you. Who was the second greatest conservative of our lifetime?
Okay, I think William F. Buckley Jr. was number one. Maybe Ronald Reagan number two.
Okay, I'll stipulate to that. William F. Buckley number one, Ronald Reagan number two. So who was number three? I'll tell you.
Oh, okay, maybe like Thomas Sowell.
No, Superman, that illegal alien from the planet Krypton. Superman, who stood for what did he stand for? Are you old enough to remember?
Truth, justice, and the
American way. Yes, that's exactly right. Truth, justice, and the American way. So we need to reclaim justice as a conservative priority. I've been crusading on this for years. You have too, but not so explicitly, by demanding that we stand for justice. So I propose that we reconstitute the conservative movement to be all about truth, justice, and the American way, and no longer about pwning the libs from this day forward.
Okay, I think we can end it on that note, and tune in next week, because if you haven't been reading my other columns, I'm gonna have a really big surprise for everybody.
I'm ready to be surprised, Rachel Alexander. Truth, justice, and the American way.
Thanks everyone for watching.